here with another video for you. This is straight from chess.com's lesson series, Jeremy Silman's teaching strategy series. You can find it in the Learn and Lessons if you type in Silman. And you got a great picture of his cat right there. Anyways, I'm going to try to make this video short, okay? Like I said, I promised you short videos. Making a plan is the hardest thing to do in chess. Hands down, the hardest thing to do in chess. And Jeremy, bless his heart, tries his best to give us a system to try and figure out what we should do in a given position. And he basically breaks it down into 5 steps. In his 3rd edition of his Silman Reassess Your Chess book, he says that the first step is to figure out, basically, what good things do I have that are different than you? And what good things do you have that are different than me? Or what can be created? Basically, like, what do I have that is different than you? Or what can I create that is different than you? And how can I leverage my differences to be superior to yours? Basically, that's it. Step 2, he says, is to figure out where on the chessboard you should be playing, which I'm going to have a whole other topic about, whole other video about. Step 3 is to make a dream position. You actually have to try and imagine, like, okay, here's the position I want to achieve based on what's going on here. And then trying to figure out a couple things. Can my opponent stop me? Can they flat out just issue their plans and ignore me completely? And then assuming that you actually can make an achievable dream position, you go for it. And you try to, and then actually you finally get to step 5, which is calculation and evaluation. You actually start trying to calculate, okay, what moves can I make from my current position that take me to where I need to go? Now, again, I'm going to try and break down all of these things, not all in this video. However, I'm going to kind of show you in this video how those things can be applied all at once, okay? Let's take a look at this famous position. This is Norwegian amateurs versus Aaron Nimzovich. Famous, very, very famous master of old from the 1920s, wrote My System. He is someone who we consider one of the founders of modern chess and the way we think about chess today. In this position, the first thing he would ask us is, what is going on in this position? What do we have that is better and different than black? Or what do we have that's different at all? And in reality, there's not much. There's only a couple things. For one thing, white has a space advantage on the king side. A space advantage is a long-term plus, a long-term gain, a long-term good thing that you can get for your positions that typically give you more room for your pieces and less room for your opponent. A space advantage is indicated by how far your pawns are pushed, and white has the furthest amount of pawns pushed compared to anybody in the center king side area of the chessboard, okay? The other thing we can talk about in this position in terms of pawn structure is the fact that white has a 4-on-3 pawn majority on the king side. Why do we care about pawn majorities? Pawn majorities are how passed pawns are usually best created. Passed pawns win a large amount of chess games. And so if white can recognize, oh, hey, I want to create a passed pawn in the center king side where I have a majority, then that can be a big advantage, and I can use that and try to convert that into a win. And likewise for black. Black's biggest space gain is in the queen side, the center queen side, because of the D pawn. And also, black has a queen side pawn majority of 4-on-3 on the queen side. And so black is interested in getting a passed pawn going there as well. The only other thing that's really different about this position, because it's almost nothing, is the fact that there's opposite side castling. And I'll tell you right now, which again, this will be another video, typically, in situations with opposite side castling, it's all out warfare for the other person's king. But in this position, because the center is not locked And because, as you will see, the center is going to play a very active, important part of what's about to happen, the center has got to and will almost always take a priority in every chess position. You're not sure what to do in chess position. You already have your pieces out. Is your king safe? Then who has domination in the center? If it's not you, it probably should be your primary goal. Anyways, back to this position. In this position, with the biggest difference between white and black's positions being pawn majorities, then both sides should be trying to think, how am I going to mobilize my pawns to forcibly create a passed pawn? And the thing is, let's think about it for white. First of all, how do you decide which is going to be your future passed pawn? Typically, I would recommend the pawn that you have that your opponent does not, your unopposed pawn. In this case, white's e-pawn. This is the pawn that white has that black does not. So I would like you to imagine, if you could just imagine that all the pieces were off the board just for a moment. If white could play the moves pawn to f5, followed by pawn to e6, and black played pawn takes pawn, and we took back, then we would have a passed pawn, a pawn that cannot be stopped by black pawns any longer and has the best chance to become a queen. And likewise for black, in this position, black has a d pawn, and we don't. What is the fastest way for black to create a passed pawn? Pawn to c5, followed by pawn to d4. And after we play pawn takes pawn, they play pawn takes back, and they get a passed pawn. And they use their imbalance. They use their advantage. Okay? There's some other things that we can think about in this position, I suppose, like the fact that these knights are pretty horrific, and they need some good posts, and the fact that white has a couple weak squares, and black doesn't. But something else that we really need to think about right now is this. Typically, what we should be doing right now is thinking a dream position. Okay, if we need to make a plan revolving playing f5 and e6, where do we want our pieces to make that happen? And let's see here, okay, well, I need to play f5. But the problem is that right now black has 2 attackers over that square and we only have 1 defender. That's a problem. How am I going to gain more leverage? I could try to play moves like queen d3. I could try to play moves like knight to d4. That could give me more leverage. But it also seems like black can really, fight for that square a lot. They can play g6, fight me even harder for that. They could even maybe sink a knight into f5, which would really make it hard for it, okay? But let's take a look at it for black for a second. Black's about to just play the move c5 and d4. And honestly, there's nothing that we're doing at the moment that's stopping it. Sure, we could try to mix some stuff up and play queen d3, pawn g6, and rook d1, trying to slow it down a bit. But this just really isn't the way. The fact is here, unfortunately, if we take a deep look at this position, it turns out that black has a firm blockade over f5. They really, really do. Not only are they attacking it 2 times and can quickly add a third one, but they can occupy it and there's not much we can do about it. Unless we're willing to look at moves like g4, but that's going to come at the cost of our king safety, okay? Whereas, on the other hand, black is about to just play c5 and d4 and just start rolling these pawns, and nothing's going to happen about it at all. After a lot of deep searching in this position, there is a move that makes sense. Do we, as chess players, need to be focused on our ideas? Absolutely. As much as humanly possible, you need to push your own agenda. You need to insist on your ideas coming to light and not reacting and just, trying to stop your opponent's ideas. But here's the hard truth right here. White's clear plan here, other than just improving the pieces, is to get that pawn majority rolling. And the fact is that black already has stopped us. And nothing is stopping black from executing their ideas. For many, 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 many reasons in this position, the best move here is b4. Why? Simple, actually, if you really think about it. By playing the move b4, it attacks the square c5 so that playing that move is not so easy, right? The other thing is that I really wanted to put that knight into d4, but they were going to play c5 and just kick it anyway. Notice how b4 turns d4 into what we need to know is called an artificial outpost, okay? Remember, you don't always have to get an outpost. Sometimes you can create artificial outposts by stopping them from attacking you with their pawns, right? And yeah, so this basically says, all right, I'm going to pursue my ideas, but your ideas flat out are going to come faster and better than mine. I'm going to take one little move out of my day to slow down your plan and then pursue mine. Knight f5. Making the knight superior than ours. Threatening the move knight e3, forking our queen and our rook. And giving some more control over d4. What do we play here? Queen d3. Why? Simple. We're not just going to react to the opponent willy-nilly. Yes, does this stop our opponent from their idea of forking us? Yeah, but ultimately, we are giving more control over the f5 square because, again, now that we have slowed down black enough, we're going to turn back to our ideas, okay? We're not focused on their ideas. We just had to acknowledge that theirs were a bit faster. Pawn to h5. Black might be showing that they don't want us to play g4, kicking that knight and fueling our expedition to f5. But you know what? They're not stopping knight d4. Now in this lesson, Jeremy actually makes black, played by Aaron Nimzovich, play a mistake in this position. What should be played in this position is guarding the knight right now with pawn g6 and insisting that f5 stay blockaded. But the reason that Aaron might not want to do that is because after pawn to g6 and we trade a bunch on f5, it's going to leave black with double isolated f pawns and isolated h pawn. And, you know, even a master might evaluate that as a loss, that those pawns can't be saved. In this case, we're going to have black go ahead and take that knight. What do we take here? Do we take it with the pawn or the queen? Well, of course with the pawn, right? We have to stay focused on f5. Boom. And now when black tries to stop us, we break through. Notice again in this position that we are focused on our ideas, but we saw that theirs were coming first. So we took a quick second to stop theirs and create a nice square for our knight that was part of our idea anyway, and then went right back to work. They can trade, we can trade, but this is just a beautiful position, okay? White's position almost plays itself here. The rooks double up on the f-file, applying great pressure to both the isolated f7 pawn as well as the h5 pawn. This queen on d3 is very well posted. It could even swing to f3, where it can continue to target all of those things. You know, white is definitely in control here. And just to show you, he does have a lesson right after this showing that variation and showing the flip sides, right? This is the exact situation before where white just played pawn or knight to d4 and saying, well, what should black play here? And again, what black should play here is that pawn g6, allowing white to play knight takes knight, queen takes, and yes, even if it continues out to play the moves queen takes queen and pawn takes, okay? And you can see, you know, I don't know if you can see the evaluation bar right now. Actually, I'll turn that off just in case. But it's saying that, you know, white has maybe a slight advantage here. Again, I'm saying a lot of players here would be nervous seeing how crippled those pawn structures can be. But again, you know, another video, I'm gonna talk all about this. A weakness is only as weak as it can be punished. And in this position, try to come up with a plan that allows white to really target those pawns super well and doesn't take a ton of time that black would then have to actually set up a defense. And it's just, you know, it's just not going to happen that fast. And black has time. And black's ultimately going to be okay here, even though it did cost the pawn structure just to shut down those ideas. Anyway, again, quick review. Okay, take a deep breath. I know I just threw a lot at you. The whole goal here is giving you a kind of overview of what it looks like to make a plan in a position. In this last position, again, what happened was we saw what did we have that was different than the opponent? And what we had was a space advantage on the king side and a pawn majority on the king side. We remember that an advantage has got to be used. It's only as good as you can use it. So we tried to formulate a plan to use our pawn majority and really push it and create a passed pawn. We also took a look at what Black's ideas were. Black's ideas was to push their center queenside pawn majority. And when we really took a deep look, it just turned out that Black was stopping our ideas, and their ideas were going to come super, super fast. And we found a way to take one move out of our day, just one little pawn move, pawn b4, to really slow down those ideas so that our ideas would not come so much slower and just get rolled over, okay? One, just quick reference, last thing I'm going to say. If any of you go and check out my other video about the difference between beginners, intermediates, and advanced, I talk about sometimes even advanced players get too tunnel visioned on their ideas and they don't see their opponent's ideas coming. It would have been an advanced play and yet still a mistake for you to do all that work of, hey, I've got a pawn majority on the king side and I'm going to make a plan to support it and push it. But you completely ignore what your opponent was up to and their ideas just end up coming faster and harder than yours. And like, that's an advanced mistake in my opinion. It is. So, we had to be aware of that. Anyways, I'm jibber jabbering at this point. If you see this on Twitter, on Twitch, thank you so much for the follows, for the subscribes. Otherwise, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, whatever. And let me know in the comments what you want to see from me. I'm going to keep putting out lots of these videos. You guys are amazing. Until then, I will see you guys later. Bye for now.